Welcome to Bake to Perfection, the podcast where the ovens are hot, the royal icing is moody, the cookies are always better than yesterday's attempts, where we believe your baking questions deserve real answers and your disasters deserve a good laugh. I'm your host and owner of Royalty Bakes LLC, Tanika Williams, here to help you bake smarter, laugh harder, and stop blaming your oven for every disaster. Well, most of them. Let's bake something amazing today. So last week, someone messaged me and said, I didn't have cake flour, so I used bread flour. And my cupcakes were as dense as my ex. And honestly, the science checks out. Today we're baking down the flour drama.
Oh dear. Not their cupcakes as dense as their ex? Honey, I sure hope that you can break this down for us. This seems like a 911 emergency.
All right, let's go ahead and settle this very important kitchen argument. What's the actual difference between all purpose, cake, and bread flour? And does it really matter which one you grab? Oh, yep, absolutely it matters. Sometimes a lot. By the end of this episode, you'll know why some flour makes your cakes tender and some makes them chewy, when you can swap flours and when it's a crime, and how to stop your cupcakes from turning into tiny bricks. All right, let's stir up some gluten. Our main topic is to dive deep into the flour types. Let's start with the basics. What even is flour drama? First, we'll talk about all purpose flour. It's the middle child. So, all purpose flour is like the neutral friend that gets along with everyone. It has a moderate protein content, usually around 10 to 12%. Protein in flour creates gluten, and gluten gives baked goods structure. It's great for cookies, quick breads, muffins, pancakes, and lots of cakes. It's not ideal for super light cakes or super chewy breads. You can use it for basically everything, but just know it'll give you middle of the road results. All purpose flour is like saying, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want it to mostly work. Second is cake flour. It's the delicate diva. Cake flour is the princess of the flour world. Low protein, extra soft. Usually around 7 to 9% protein. It's milled very fine and often bleached. The results give you tender, soft, fluffy cakes with a fine crumb. You use cake flour when you want light, fluffy layer cakes, angel food cake, or chiffon cake. Anything where you want that melt in your mouth vibe. If you use all purpose instead of cake flour in a delicate cake, you might get tougher crumb, less rise, heavier, denser slices. Cake flour is a friend who says, if the vibe isn't soft and pretty, I'm not coming. Bread flour is the gym bro. Bread flour is like the flour that lifts weights for fun. Often 12 to 14% protein, designed for strong gluten networks. The result, chewiness, structure, big air pockets in bread. It's great for yeast breads, pizza dough, bagels, but it's not so great for cupcakes, muffins, or tender cookies. If you use bread flour in cupcakes, you're basically saying, I want these to fight back when I bite them. Last but not least is pastry flour. It's the underrated cousin. If you ever see pastry flour, it sits between all purpose and cake flour. It's great for pies, tart shells, biscuits, and scones. You get tenderness, but still enough structure to hold shape. When can you substitute? Cake flour and all purpose flour, you can usually sub if you're okay with slightly less tender results. For 1 cup of all purpose flour, remove 2 tablespoons and replace with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Sift well. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. Bread flour and all purpose flour, you can sub in many bread recipes, but texture will change. Avoid bread flour in delicate cakes. If your recipe calls for cake flour and you ignore it, you're not being creative, you're signing up for a denser cake. Now, let me give you a little bit of a science snack. Short, nerdy, and surprisingly helpful, like a mini muffin with a PhD. Flour has proteins. When you add water and mix, they link up and form gluten. Gluten is a stretchy network that traps gas and gives baked goods structure. More mixing equals more gluten. It's great for bread if you want a strong, stretchy structure. Bad for tender cakes and cookies. Too much gluten equals tough. Higher protein flour, more potential gluten. That's why bread flour gives chew and cake flour feels super soft. As a little bit of a bonus, let's do a my fail. My cake is dense and rubbery. Today's fix my fail comes from Totally Not Panicking in Texas, who says, my cake came out dense and kind of rubbery instead of fluffy. I followed the recipe, I think. What did I do wrong? Possible culprits: use all purpose or bread flour instead of cake flour, overmix the batter, didn't measure flour correctly, too much packed flour, old leavening, baking powder, or baking soda. How can you fix it? Next time, use cake flour or DIY cake flour. Mix just until combined. Spoon and level flour, don't scoop. Check expiration dates. Your cake isn't a failure, it's just a 2.0 version of itself. Call it a snack cake and move on. One thing that you can try this week: bake your go to recipe twice with two different flours, all purpose versus cake or all purpose versus bread if it's bread, and compare the texture. Take a crumb shot or tag me or send pics with which flour you used. That's it for today's episode of Baked to Perfection. We officially learned that flour has feelings, protein levels have drama, and using bread flour and cupcakes should be considered a cry for help. If today's episode helped you decode your flour shelf, share it with a baking friend, leave a review, or send me your side by side flour experiments. I love seeing your kitchen science. Until next time, keep your butter soft, your flour labeled, and your expectations realistic. Bye, friends.